Welcome back to our podcast, GK Repair Podcast, if that's what we're still calling this. Today, we are going to be talking about OEM tools, and this is going to be specific to tablet and cell phone repair. But Brandon and I have an interesting background in using techniques that were developed by independent repair places as well as doing authorized repair for OEMs. And so we're going to talk about some of the tools that we were required to have, whether or not we use some of them, and whether or not, because now you can go onto places like this. I'm showing Mobile Centrix's website right now. You can go and you can buy these tools if you're looking to do repairs yourself. Maybe you already have a business and you want to see if it's worth getting some of these OEM tools brought in. And for that, we're gonna start where you would start off with a device, and that's getting the device open. So we're gonna start with Samsung here and the automatic Octa display remover, the AOD. And Brandon, I know you have an opinion on it.
Yeah, starting with the highlight of the items we have today. Probably the um, one device that OEM tool that we would both agree is a very useful one. Now, I with all these tools, uh, there's going to be that question whether the price is right on them, whether that the price is worth the investment. And that's a more difficult question because these things, you know, what the pictures are looking like $300 to $400. That's a hefty price tag.
So yeah, so you can get a used one for 320 and a new one
Yeah.
for 440. But that's the cost for the machine itself. That doesn't include these other parts that you
Mm,
also need to get, these other
mm-hmm.
vacuum sealers that you need to get because different devices require different sealers. So um not to mention the maintenance cost too, because you have to look at potentially replacing hoses eventually. um another little maintenance things that you have to do with them. um so it is expensive and it's exclusive to Samsung devices, so you're not going to be able to put an iPhone into something like this and have it work correctly. So it is expensive. uh Now, when you were working with that company, did you use the AOD much?
So not much. It's something that you have to be, perfect about. You have to
Hmm.
be babysitting
That was my
and
biggest complaint with it.
it's not
Is
really helpful,
it's
it's not
certainly
really
faster
conducive
than
to
doing a
multitasking.
manual method with a
You
heat
get the
gun.
temptation to multitask.
Um,
Um,
and the
and
So
then
basically, how it
if you
works
do,
is
then you got a broken back glass.
if you
So,
can see what I'm doing with the mouse here, it's not totally working, but up in this area right here is where you put in the device, and it uses a combination of heat and suction to separate the frame from the rear glass. And the heating process takes about 5 minutes. And then as it's pulling it separates the two pretty slowly. So it takes a minute or a minute and a half to get it all fully disassembled. But while it's doing that, you have to kind of babysit it because on some devices, the section's only happening on one side of the device, and so if it lifts up everything by itself, you have the risk of cracking the back glass, which happened many times. And so we had some technicians that got really proficient with it, and some technicians preferred not to use it at all. At one point, the owner of the company that we worked for, he actually banned the use of the AOD because he felt that too many back glasses were being broke because technicians either weren't proficient or technicians were not babysitting, and they were trying to multitask, and so they just leave a device in there. not watch what was going on because they're busy doing something else, and then you'd hear the inevitable explosion like sound of glass shattering. Um, so if I were starting up a new company, and a new cell phone repair company, would I invest in the AOD? My answer to that would be no. I preferred a more manual method using a different Samsung device, that's also used for um, Octa repair, which is the hot plate. But that's going to be the last thing that we put up here is the hot plate. We'll talk about that later. Let's see what else does Mobile Centrics have for OEM tools. We can talk about, I guess these. This is for Apple. So this is for, um, looks like some of it's for disassembly. They're using section for disassembly of the screens. They also use a press for putting screens back in. Um, did you use any of the Apple OEM tools? I did not. I didn't use any. Right. So yeah, they were just coming in, as I was leaving my former company. These tools were just coming in. So I worked there for 4 years, and for 4 years we didn't have these tools to use, or nearly 4 years.
I'm not
Um,
even familiar with
so I
them,
never
to be
used
honest with
them.
you.
I
That's
look
how
at this,
that's how much I
and
use them.
this all reminds me of all the stuff that came out when Apple launched their at home repair. Right. So these were tools that you could potentially rent from Apple and do the repair yourself. And I was looking at people attempting to use these tools, and I'm just like, oh, geez. They're spending more time attempting to assemble what these jigs do. I could have fixed the entire phone, and then gone and made myself a sandwich and probably watched a movie, by the time they finish just assembling these parts together. They haven't even started the repair yet.
Mm,
um, so yeah, these are not uh,
2 times
tools
over.
that I would invest in. um,
Yeah.
the next one on here is something that I do have a opinion about too, um, is the presses. So here you have, this is a mold for an S20 Plus right here that I'm kind of circling here. So this mold, after you're finished doing the repair on your S20, you would put the phone back together, and then you put it in this mold right here, and there's a top and bottom part to the mold, and then you'd put it, I think down here at the bottom is the jig. Yeah, right here. Um, no, right there. That's the one. So you put it in this service jig, and you crank the thing down, and this is torqued, so you can only go down to a certain pressure. But what it does is it seals the device, because if you want to attempt to restore water resistancy, you need even pressure to come down and re-adhere the back glass to the frame. And so, um, I could go on a rant on how I feel about water resistancy, uh, and IP ratings, and how they're all BS. Um, it's all a marketing ploy. Companies will say this is IP. Yeah, look at us. We made this water resistant phone. It's IP68 rated. And then you go out for a swim and your phone's damaged, and
Hmm.
there's no warranty that covers, um, liquid damage. So, um, or at least those warranties are few and far between. But I'm not going to go on that tangent. Um, I would say that these molds. So this thing's it's pretty expensive for this jig, right? So it's $143 for the jig. That's just for the press itself. That doesn't include all of the other molds that you have to get, and these are all per device, right? And so you're looking at $6 there for an iPhone 12, $6.04 there for an S9. Now, so Brandon, I don't know if you know how expensive these molds were a couple years ago. $6 was not the cost of these molds a couple years ago. It was closer to between like I don't know $20 and $30 per mold, and you need one for each individual model phone. So you could spend literally hundreds of dollars on
Mm.
these molds, and I know the company was forced to buy those. So um, we never guaranteed water resistancy as part of the repair work that we did. Like I said, I think water resistancy is a BS thing. On most devices, you can't test for it after repair anyway. Samsung's were the exception to that rule. Um, but even that test was sketchy at best. Um, that's the short version. Um, yeah, not a lot of confidence
That's
there.
the short version.
I what I will say about using the molds is the end result is pristine. If done right, when you take a look at that device, it does not look like it's been. It doesn't look like anyone's been in it before, and so if you're looking for the best possible look, um, then yeah, these molds are kind of the way to go. I like the idea of the press versus using like your hands to just kind of press in a back glass back into the phone. Um, yeah,
Or
I
a
would say
universal
it's
press.
totally worth getting a universal press, which I know they have on Mobile Centrics. You can get one. These are all OEM ones, but there are universal ones that you get, and I would definitely recommend investing into something like that. But these OEM ones, if you don't have to get one, I wouldn't. I wouldn't spend the money. It's quite the investment to get into it. uh, so I'm not going to get into these pliers and cutters. This page is just adhesive cutter. That's not worth buying. Cleaning supplies. This is one thing, which is a thing. It's like a medical grade Q-tip, basically. It's kind of expensive compared to what you can get actual Q-tips for. I wouldn't get anything like that. Um, Pry tools. um, I never used any of these. This is for specifically a OnePlus 9. We never did any
No,
of that. These nylon probes, these black sticks, pack of four
an
for
OEM black stick.
334. That seems really expensive to me.
Yeah, what's an OEM black stick? Like, what
An
is it like?
OEM nylon probe black stick. Yeah, I don't know why
Huh.
that's so expensive. Um,
Maybe someone else can
I feel
tell us
like you
in
can
the
get a
comments here
hundred
if
of
they
these
know what's
on
so special
Amazon for
about
the
that
same
black stick.
price. Yeah, what is so special about this black stick versus a universal black stick? I don't know. Um, Universal display removal. This looks like this is using suction to use to separate
Yeah, there's
glass from frame.
circumstances that call for it, I
I'm not
suppose.
a huge
I,
fan of using
but
suction,
yeah, I would agree with you.
to be honest with you. Sure. So the thing with using suction versus using like a tool like the black stick to get between the frame and the glass that you're trying to separate, or
Hmm.
using like something that's like metallic, you can potentially chip the glass or crack the glass or chip the frame, versus using suction. It really just breaks the adhesive, and so you don't have to worry about potential frame damage, which I do like. The problem that I have with suction is if you have a phone that was dropped, and that glass is just annihilated, it doesn't matter like
So
how many
there's
pieces
certain
of tape and whatnot
batteries
you put on the glass to try to
that I've
get
used a
a
little
suction cup to
alcohol
actually
heat and
suction onto it. It's
suction
not going to
on.
work.
So
So So yeah, the only time that I was pretty religious on using suction for were batteries. But part of that
Yeah,
is I'm
fair
much more
enough.
patient when it comes to removing a battery because I don't want it to explode. As opposed to trying to get like an iPhone screen separated from the frame. I got things to do and places to be. I need to get through this repair quickly and efficiently. And suction to me was not efficient.
Yeah,
But on a battery repair, um, it's not so much about efficiency and speed; it's about safety, and um, you don't want to bend the battery and cause a thermal event. So, let's see. The last thing that Mobile Centrics has, and I picked Mobile Centrics here. I know there are some other sites that you can get OEM stuff from. I picked Mobile Centrics because I like them. And so if this gets them some attention, they don't sponsor us or anything because we're not cool enough to have sponsors. But um, we've met Sod and team, so we can speak to Mobile Centrics and their
our
integrity.
favorite one.
So yeah, I just wish they had the hot plate because I have to pick someone else to show that off. But yeah, so torque screwdrivers. So Google and Samsung, they both have specific um, torque settings that you're supposed to be when you put in screws into their devices. There's a specific torque that you're supposed to be torquing them to. And I was told by Samsung that phones will not pass the water resistance test unless you actually use the correct torque when it comes to replacing the screws. So they told me two things when I was going through training with them. First is that you cannot reuse screws. You have to use brand new screws that have Loctite already pre-applied on them. And you have to use the torque spec screwdriver, and if you don't do both, it's not going to pass the water resistance
Yeah,
test. And I can tell you that's not true at all on both counts. Um, so the interesting thing here is I remember having to order torque. The part of my job was making sure that all the locations had the right tools. So I was ordering tools. And when they told us
mm,
we had to order these torque screwdrivers, I remember how much they cost at the time, and it was like $120. I think it was like $118 to get them. Now I see them here for $15. I'm fairly positive that our former company was just
mm.
getting railed on the pricing, because they were forced into buying all these
Everyone loves a
OEM
monopoly.
tools, and they had to get them from one specific location only, and that one place dictated pricing. Yeah. So yeah, if I'm one of those franchisees, and I'm remembering 2 years back, 3 years back, and spending 4 grand,
Hmm.
between 2 and 4 grand on OEM tools. Because I'm thinking it was at least 2 grand just for the Samsung stuff, let alone the Google stuff and the Apple stuff now. But thousands of dollars on OEM tools that ultimately a lot of it just ended up sitting in a box somewhere. And then now
Yeah,
you can order the same stuff from Mobile Centrics at a fraction of the cost. It's unreal. But anyway, if you really believe in attention to detail and you want to um, torque the screws to the proper specification, $15 for a screwdriver is not bank breaking. Um, I doubt that people will find much use for it because you can still over torque a screwdriver using these screwdrivers. Um, but If it were me, I probably wouldn't invest the $15. Um, but that's me because I've
Yeah, I'm right there
seen
with you.
plenty of devices coming in and out with people using different tools and not these torquing ones and everything working just fine. So yeah, and then the last thing I'll have to switch over to that site. This is the one that you and I think it's worth its weight in gold. If I can
But it
get it to
is a
pop up
weight
anyway.
in gold.
Here we go. So this is called it's worth its weight in gold, maybe, if you can find it. There was three sites where I found this. One was in Europe, and it was like a 345
Yikes.
euros, and then there was one that was stateside, but it was like $700 for this guy. This is the Samsung Octa Service hot plate, and the point of this was you would put your Samsung device in this, you would heat it for 10 minutes. Most devices, I believe, were at 80 degrees Celsius for 10 minutes. Um, and then you take it out of this, and then you put it into the manual separator jig, which used suction and a crank, and you would separate the two that way. So this is meant for Samsung devices, but you can't really see in the picture here how large this is, but you could fit a whole iPad in this. You could fit an iPad Pro 12-inch in this. So if you are doing phones, so this is a universal device, is what it is. Um, I absolutely love this. The first time I was introduced to this, I was in training in Florida, uh, and we put an iPad into this. And previously to being introduced to this device, I was used to taking a heat gun and a bunch of um, guitar picks or playing cards or whatever, and you heat up part of the screen of the iPad, a cracked screen. You lift up part of it, you heat it, you lift up part of the screen, you put a pick in it or whatever, then you heat up the next part, and then you slowly work your way around the entire screen. And I can remember iPad repairs for me, it would take well over an hour to do a single digitizer replacement on an iPad. Um, and the first half hour of that might be just getting the cracked screen off, and sometimes longer depending on how bad that was. But when I was in training, they gave us basically half a day to get these iPads done, and I had the whole repair done in probably 15 minutes, because this heats up the entire device. So when it comes out, the whole screen is warm, and the frame is warm to the touch. And so if you work quickly enough, you can
Hmm.
just take a adhesive cutter and just cut around that adhesive so fast, and that screen will come off. And so we use these for Google devices, we use these for iPads, iPhones, Samsung devices, lots of tablets. This thing was worth everything. This is the one OEM tool that, if I could have only one OEM tool, this would be it. This thing was in use all day,
Oh
every
yeah. I
day,
mean,
with every
we could
technician
we could
that
rant
we
about
had.
this for longer if we wanted to,
You
because
probably agree with all
you know,
that.
you got those little heating individual, blue heating pads, but the heat disperses
Mm,
and doesn't evenly heat, and kind of localized similar to the heat gun.
yeah.
It's got nothing on these uh, hot plates.
Hmm. Yeah. The blue hot pads, I think, are a better option, more often than like a heat gun.
Well, we eventually
Um,
did.
so like I know with you in the van, you had the hot pads. You didn't have these plates. Um, eventually, oh yeah, that's right. Eventually, you did. But yeah, basically this thing, yeah, you put it in, and the lid there closes, and so essentially you bake the device, and so yeah, everything is evenly heated. of course, the risk to this, just like with any other tool that you use that uses heat, is if you have a device that
Yeah,
has a bad
you got to
battery or
look out
expanded
swelling and
battery,
make
you
sure
know, baking a Samsung device with a bad battery could lead to an explosion. Um, yeah, you have look out for swelling. That's when anytime you apply heat to something like that, could you increase the risk. But in the 4 years working there, I never experienced an explosion or any kind of fire. There was one time where someone brought in a old Samsung. I want to say it was like an S8 maybe, and it didn't look like it had a battery issue. It wasn't there because it had a battery issue. It was there because it had a bad screen. Um, but it didn't look like it had any kind of battery issue. But I used it. I heated it for 10 minutes, and at the end, I got the ding. I
yikes.
went in, picked the thing up, and in my hand, I could feel the battery getting bigger and pushing off the rear glass, and it was a very uncomfortable feeling. So, um, yeah. You got any other things that you're thinking about with OEM and
Oh
OEM
yeah, the one
tools?
Google
Um,
OEM tool
oh yeah,
that's
there was the
theoretically
one last
awesome.
thing. Google blessed us with one tool. So yeah, this guy here, yeah, this guy. So um this is not an O. So this was created by Google. This is Google's idea, though you can't actually buy one of these from Google, as far as I know. Their direction to us was just to get an X-Acto blade like this, right? Take out the blade and put in fishing line. And I've talked about this before on another podcast. But this is for taking off your flex connectors, and I like this method versus fingernails versus using
Hmm.
black sticks, especially if you're trying to dig into, if you have a flex connector that's kind of
Hmm.
recessed into the frame or behind a like a mid frame or something like that, and you can't see uh, any of the any of the components that are around the connector. I think using this, because the only thing you're touching with this is, or putting any kind of pressure, is when you put it on the corner
Yeah,
of the
it's the
flex
best way
itself.
to not
um,
inadvertently cause
to lift
damage,
up
I
on
would
it, you're
say.
not putting any kind of pressure on any of the components around it, like you might actually accidentally do with a fingernail or with a black stick. So yeah. hmm so so thank you, Google, for that wonderful idea. And thank you, Samsung, for the hot plate. The hot plate is just, it's great. It's great. Um, that's all I have for OEM parts. Um, if you have any comments or concerns, or you want any advice on any of these components, feel free to ask us questions. We're also thinking about changing things up a little bit with our format and
Oh, that sounds
getting
great. And feel
other
free to
voices
comment
involved.
if you
So
disagree, if you like
if
one of
anyone
these
thinks that's a
tools
good
that
idea, I
we
think it's
don't care
probably a
for,
good idea
or if you
to
think
get
we're
other
crazy
people
about
involved.
the
Just
ones
let
we
us
like.
know. You got anything that you want to end on? Yeah, this is all 100% opinion right here, because I'm sure that there has to be somebody somewhere that just absolutely loves
I don't know if I want to hear
the
from them
Google
on
disassembly tools.
the comments though.
I
Anyone
would
else?
question their sanity.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough.
We want to
Yeah.
add, look, we want to add voices, but not from that person. Yeah, Alaska guy. We want we want to
Yeah.
bring him on. Who else was it that we were talking about the other
Oh,
day?
that guy. Yeah.
We had
We'll have you
Alaska guy.
if you can
Oh yeah,
wake up your
the whoever is sleeping right now. Yeah, yeah.
All right.
We would love for you to wake up and join the show. All right. If you made it this far, good on you. God bless. We'll see ya in a couple weeks.